Hey everyone, welcome to the Center Church podcast. Our mission is simple. We help the people of BYRON Center focus on Christ, community, and our co-mission to see zero people unchanged by Jesus. So whether you've been following Jesus your whole life or your journey has just begun, we hope that this message will help you draw near to the person of Jesus, be challenged and encouraged by his word, and be moved to action. We hope these next few moments are a blessing to you and equip you to see who God really is and who you are in him.
Well, good morning, church. For those who don't know, if I haven't had a chance to meet you, my name is JJ, and I'm the lead pastor here at Center Church, and it was just such a pleasure to worship with you guys this morning. Today, we are going to start out with a little bit of an unusual message. So our first service was, we had the kids do their little performance, and they sang some Christmas songs for us, and so I encourage you guys to go check that out. But what I'd like to do is I want to start this message with a kid's book. This is The Tale of Three Trees. It's a traditional folk tale, and it's retold by Angela Elwell Hunt, illustrated by Tim Yonke. Has anybody heard of this book before? Tale of Three Trees? Couple, one or two, yeah? Okay, so I'd never heard of this before, but it's just a really great story, and so I thought it fits so perfectly with today. So I'm going to read it for you all today in the spirit of our kids and their programming and all that stuff. So, all right. Once upon a mountaintop, three little trees stood and dreamed of what they wanted to become when they grew up. The first tree looked up to the stars twinkling like diamonds above him. "I want to hold treasure," he said. "I want to be covered with gold and filled with precious stones. I will be the most beautiful treasure chest in the world." The second little tree looked out at the small stream trickling by on its way to the ocean. "I want to be a strong sailing ship," he said. "I want to travel mighty waters and carry powerful kings. I will be the strongest ship in the world." The third little tree looked down at the valley below where busy men and busy women worked in the busy town. "I don't want to leave the mountaintop at all," she said. "I want to grow so tall that when people stop and look at me, they will raise their eyes to heaven and think of God. I will be the tallest tree in the world." Years passed, the rains came, the sun shone, and the three trees grew tall. Then one day, three woodcutters climbed the mountain. The first woodcutter looked at the first tree and said, "This tree is beautiful. It's perfect for me." And with a swoop of his shining axe, the first tree fell. "Now I shall be made into a beautiful chest," thought the first tree. "I shall hold wonderful treasure." The second woodcutter looked at the second tree and said, "This tree is strong. It's perfect for me." And with a swoop of his shining axe, the second tree fell. "Now I shall sail the mighty waters," thought the second tree. "I shall be a strong ship fit for kings." The third tree felt her heart sink as the last woodcutter looked her way, and she stood straight and tall and pointed bravely to heaven. But the woodcutter never even looked up. "Any kind of tree will do for me," he muttered, and with a swoop of his shining axe, the third tree fell. The first tree rejoiced when the woodcutter brought him to the carpenter's shop, but the busy carpenter was not thinking about treasure chests. Instead, his work-worn hands fashioned the tree into a feed box for animals. The once beautiful tree was not covered with gold or filled with treasure. He was coated with sawdust and filled with hay for hungry farm animals. The second tree smiled when the woodcutter took him to a shipyard, but no mighty sailing ships were being made that day. Instead, the once strong tree was hammered and sawed into a simple fishing boat, too small and too weak to even sail on an ocean or even a big river. He was taken to a little lake, and every day he brought in loads of dead, smelly fish. The third tree was confused when the woodcutter cut her into strong beams and left her in a lumber yard. What happened? The once tall tree wondered. All I ever wanted to do was stay on the mountaintop and point to God. Many, many days and nights passed, and the three trees nearly forgot their dreams. But one night, golden starlight poured over the first tree as a young woman placed her newborn baby in the feed box. "I wish I could make a cradle for him," whispered her husband. The mother squeezed his hand and smiled as the starlight shone on the smooth and sturdy wood. "This manger is beautiful," she said. And suddenly the first tree realized that he was holding the greatest treasure in the world. One evening, a tired traveler and his friends crowded into an old fishing boat, and the traveler fell asleep as the second tree quietly sailed out onto the lake. But soon a thundering and thrashing storm arose, and the little tree shuddered. He knew he did not have the strength to carry so many passengers safely through the wind and rain, and the tired man awakened. He stood up, stretched out his hand, and said, "Peace." And the storm stopped as quickly as it had begun, and suddenly the second tree realized he was carrying the King of heaven and earth. And then one Friday morning, the third tree was startled when her beams were yanked from the forgotten woodpile. She flinched as she was carried through an angry, jeering crowd. She shuddered when soldiers nailed a man's hand to her. She felt ugly and harsh and cruel. But on Sunday morning, when the sun rose and the earth trembled with joy beneath her, the third tree knew that God's love had changed everything. It had made the first tree beautiful. It had made the second tree strong. And every time people thought of the third tree, they would think of God. And that was better than being the tallest tree in the world. You know what I love about that book is it's so clever. When we begin the book, it's a little confusing and we don't have all the pieces, but we can't quite see the picture of how it all comes together. I'd never heard of that book before I got married, but my wife knew it from her childhood, and as we had kids, she said, "Oh, we got to read this to them," and now I've read it to every single one of my kids a lot. I'm well practiced on that book. Now, on your seat when you walked in this morning, you might have found a puzzle piece. Hopefully you can still find it. Oh, I have two in my pocket. What I want you to see is for this morning, I'd like you to hold on to this puzzle piece as we go, because what we're going to see is that whether it's an adorable children's book, the birth of Jesus in Bethlehem all those years ago, or your life here and now today, God has a habit of bringing all the pieces together. And so what I want you to do is hold on to your puzzle piece and try to imagine what is the picture that your puzzle piece makes. See, today is the last Sunday before Christmas Eve. Husbands, if you haven't done your shopping, I'm sorry, man, it's too late. You can get started on your apology letter. You could do that. But for the last few weeks, we have been exploring the miracles of the birth of Jesus and the moments when heaven breaks through into our lives. We talked about the virgin birth, and we talked about the star and the magi. And then last week, we got into the story of the shepherds getting visited by the angels. And today, I want to talk about puzzle pieces and prophecy. And so I want you to grab your Bible, and we're going to open up to Matthew chapter 2, but that's a trick. Don't go to Matthew chapter 2. I want you guys to open up to Micah chapter 5. Now, Micah's all the way back in the Old Testament. The story starts in Matthew 5, but we're going to spend most of our time in Micah. So Matthew chapter 2 opens up, and it says in verse 1, Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the reign of King Herod. And about that time, some wise men from eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." And King Herod was deeply disturbed when he heard this, as was everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting of the leading priests and teachers of the religious law. Where is the Messiah supposed to be born? Now, we kind of covered this a couple weeks ago with Pastor Amanda, who came and gave us a message about the three wise men. But basically, what happened was these men visit King Herod, and he sees this new king as a threat to his reign. And so he wants to know all about the king. So he asks, okay, where is the Messiah supposed to be born? And his priests, his chief priests, they give him the answer. It says in verse 5, it says, "Oh, he's supposed to be born in Bethlehem in Judea," they said. "For this is what the prophet wrote. And you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are not least among the ruling cities of Judah. For a ruler will come from you, who will be the shepherd for my people Israel." And so Herod asks, where is the Messiah supposed to be born? And the priests, they know the answer because for the Jewish people, they have a prophecy about this. Anybody want to guess where that prophecy comes from? I already gave you the answer. Yeah, Micah, yeah. Ta-da! The book of Micah. So if you want to flip back to Micah, chapter 5. Micah, which came 600 or 700 years before Jesus. I'm watching their faces. Yeah, you did it. 6, 7. Sometimes you got to hand stuff to the teenagers too, right? Okay. Basically hundreds of years before Jesus, around about the same time as the prophet Isaiah, there was this guy Micah who made prophecies about the Messiah. He said, okay, here's the guy who's going to save God's people. So chapter 5, verse 2, it says, "But you, O Bethlehem Ephrathah, are only a small village among all the people of Judah. Yet a ruler of Israel will come from you, one whose origins are from the distant path. The people of Israel will be abandoned to their enemies until the woman in labor gives birth. Then at last his fellow countrymen will return from exile in their own land. To their own land, and he will stand to lead his flock with the Lord's strength in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. And then his people will live there undisturbed, for he will be highly honored around the world, and he will be the source of peace." And so, sorry, I lost my spot here. There it is. Now, this might be sort of obvious, but I want to take a second to show you how the dots connect. So he says Bethlehem, a tiny town, but that is the location where a great ruler will come out of. So it's like, check, that fits for Jesus. But then it says one whose origins come from a distant past, which is kind of an intriguing phrase because what we believe as Christians is that Jesus was born in Bethlehem, like 2,025 years ago or whatever. But he existed before that. Jesus is one with God. He's a separate person, but he's also the same essence. Jesus is God. And so the Gospel of John, which is the only story of Jesus that does not have the Christmas story in it, the Gospel of John opens up with this, and it says, "In the beginning, the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God. God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it." So when Micah says he's going to be born later, but his origins are in the distant past, that's a weird thing to say. Probably Micah didn't even understand what he meant when he said it. But then when we get to Jesus, it's like, oh, of course, that's how the puzzle pieces fit together. So back in Micah, in chapter 5, verse 3, he says, "The people of Israel will be abandoned to their enemies until the woman in labor gives birth. But then at last his fellow countrymen will return from exile to their own land, and he will stand to lead his flock with the Lord's strength." So we see that bit referencing Mary, right? The woman in labor who gives birth, Israel. And then it says, Israel will be abandoned to their enemies until the woman in labor gives birth. And then it shifts to shepherd's language. Verse 4, it says, he will stand to lead his flock in the Lord's strength. Anybody want to take a wild guess as to the number one metaphor that's used to describe Jesus in the New Testament? The Good Shepherd, right? John chapter 10, verse 11. And I realize we're kind of jumping around the Bible, but this is everywhere in the Bible. It says, "I am the Good Shepherd. And the Good Shepherd lays down his life for his sheep." And we know what he's referencing there, right? And so it's just amazing to me because it's 700 years between Micah and Jesus, and yet the puzzle piece of Jesus fits perfectly into the picture. Now, here's what I'm trying to get at all of this. We're kind of jumping around the Bible, but I'm doing that on purpose. I don't think a lot of us think of prophecy when we think about the miracles of Christmas. We don't necessarily think of it. For some of us, prophecy, it feels a little hokey, it's a little mystical or whatever. But it can be kind of fun when we have prophecy in fiction, right? Like in movies or TV shows or books or something. Like, for example, the Dune movies that just came out, those have prophecies. Or the Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or Harry Potter, they all have prophecies. I think what I'm doing here is just outing myself as a big nerd. But anyways, in fiction, there's lots of prophecy. And it's fun because when you finish the book or finish the movie, you see how it all came together. It's fun to see a prediction come to life. And it's in popular media, when we see it, we go, oh, that's clever. But we're not too impressed, right? Because the person who wrote the prophecy also got to write the end of the book, right? Like, of course, J.K. Rowling can have a prophecy at the beginning of her book because she knows how she's going to write the end of the book. Or George Lucas, when he made Star Wars, like he can have a little prophecy because he knows where he's taking the movie. He knows what he's going to do in the end. Or Dune or any of these movies. In fiction, prophecies aren't that big a deal because we know the author who made up the prophecy also gets to write the end of the story. It all comes together because that author is in control. But what I want you to see today is that the same is true about the real world. The author of the prophecies is also the one who gets to write the end of the story. It all comes together because the author is the one in control. So when we read a prophecy in Micah, and then 700 years later we see it come to life with the birth of Jesus, I don't want you to walk away from that thinking, wow, that Micah guy's really good at predicting stuff. No, that's not the point. The point is, wow, God really is the author of the story. Do you still have your puzzle piece? I want you just to hold on to that while I talk. Do you see how it starts to fit together? This actually points to something really important that a lot of people misunderstand. Prophecy in the Bible is not about predicting the future. I know that part can be exciting, and I think a lot of people get hung up on it, on the parlor tricks of prediction, and they lose sight of what prophecy is actually for. Prophecy is designed to give us hope. Right? Prophecy, if you learn one thing today, that's what I want you to hang on to, okay? Prophecy is designed to give us hope. And so keeping that in mind, let's go back into the story of Micah. Why did Micah need hope? Well, as it turns out, Micah was from a little town on the south side of Israel. Actually, there had been a civil war, and there was the northern area, which was called Israel, and then the southern was called Judah. And God warned him. He said, bad stuff is coming. At this time, there was this neighboring kingdom called Assyria, right? And they were going to come and destroy Israel. And then right behind them was another empire called the Babylonians, and they're about to come in and destroy everything. And so Micah is living in a time of conquest, of losing battles, of deportation and fear that soldiers are going to kick in the door and steal your family to serve as slaves in a foreign empire. It was a terrifying time to be alive. And Micah, he gives all those warnings. He describes all those bad things that are coming. He said, God told me these bad things are coming. If you read the whole book of Micah, it's not very cheerful. Or any of the prophets, really. Like I said, Isaiah was at the same time up in the northern kingdom. His book is not more cheerful. It's a lot of honest descriptions of bad. But every single time, Micah ends with hope. He is looking at his neighbors who are terrified. Imagine them. They're sitting inside the city. They can see the army out there. And maybe it's nighttime and they see the fires out there and they can hear the war horns. And they look at Micah with just tears streaking on their cheeks and fear in their eyes. And in that moment, Micah is not performing a magic trick. Like, ooh, can I guess your card? Can you figure out how good I am at predicting things? No, he is giving them reassurance. He is placing a hand on their shivering shoulders, looking deep into their eyes and saying, even in the darkness, there is hope. I keep reading it, but I'm going to read it again. Verse 3, Micah chapter 5. The people of Israel will be abandoned to their enemies until the woman in labor gives birth. And then at last his fellow countrymen will return from exile to their own land, and he will stand to lead his flock with the Lord's strength in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God. And then his people will live there undisturbed, for he will be highly honored around the world, and he will be the source of peace. Prophecy is designed to give us hope. So what is it in your life? Let's make this practical for you here today. I mean, we don't live in Jerusalem 2,700 years ago, right? We're not afraid of armies coming in and knocking down our doors and deporting us to a foreign land. And we don't live in Bethlehem 2,000 years ago. We're not afraid of Herod or Roman oppression or any of that stuff. The world is very different than it used to be. But at the core of who we are as humans, our need for the light is the same. Maybe you're grieving, whether it's the loss of a loved one or the loss of a relationship, and you're surrounded by all these happy faces and Christmas festivities, and in the shadow of all those Christmas lights, it feels like you're just drowning in darkness. Or maybe there's a medical procedure coming up, and you've been battling cancer for a long time, or you're just going in for a little thing. Just going to check, just to make sure. Or maybe there was trauma in your life recently, A single terrible thing that happened and it just consumes your life and it paralyzes you and you can't understand why the rest of the world just keeps going at the same speed as if what happened to you didn't happen to everyone else. Or maybe it's a person, a single person. I mean, the holidays, they not only pack our schedules, but they bring us in contact with a lot of people maybe we don't want to hang out with, right? Maybe there's one person that we've been hoping to avoid, the wayward nephew, or that one coworker who makes your life miserable, or the frustrating uncle. The brokenness of this world, it touches our lives in different ways. But even in the midst of all the joy of the holiday season, our need for hope is the same. In your life, do you need a reminder that the author who wrote the prophecy also gets to write the end of the story? Or if we jump forward from the time of Micah all the way up to the time of Herod, Micah's people are about to be conquered. Herod's people are already conquered. They have been beat down into submission for a long time. For Jesus' parents, Joseph and Mary, they would have grown up in a time where the last prophecy was 400 years ago. They've been waiting for 400 years. And after all that time, how much hope did they even have? How strong was the temptation to look at their life and say, this is just how it's always going to be? How many of you are in a season and it feels like maybe you've been in that season for a long time? I think we see this the most with family fights. You know what I'm talking about? Whether it's trying to break through to the teenager who you love so much but you just have no idea how to reach them, or tension between you and your parents. Maybe they're disappointed in you or you're disappointed with them. Or maybe it's just been frustrating for so long and you just don't know how to deal with it anymore. And you've been waiting for answers, waiting for resolution for months, maybe even years. And if that's you, if you have a situation in your life and you feel like you've been waiting and waiting for answers, I just want you to resonate with the people of Israel when God finally does show up. There is a moment when all the puzzle pieces come together and we see how it fits. And even if you're not there yet, understand prophecy is designed to give us hope, to help us hang in there. The light is coming. The baby is coming. Hang in there. The miracle of fulfilling prophecy, it's a little bit nebulous. Like, this is kind of a heady sermon. It's hard to follow that I'm trying to give you this morning. But what I hope you're starting to see is that when we look back and we see how God has made puzzles in the past, he has crafted moments where all the pieces come together over literally hundreds of years, fulfilling prophecy. That should give us confidence that Jesus is who he said he is, and Jesus can do what he said he can do. So when he says you are a beloved child of God, that you are made in God's image, worthy of dignity and respect, Jesus said, I love you so much, I'm going to break into this world for you. He said, I'm going to live and teach and serve for you. And I'm going to die on the cross for you. And I'm going to rise from the grave, defeating death so you can have eternity with our loving Father in heaven for you. And you can trust that. Because prophecy shows us that God is actually God. And no matter how strong the darkness seems in your life, the author knows how the story ends. That's the good news that I have for you today. The author knows how the story ends. Jesus, in his life, he fulfilled literally hundreds of prophecies. I'm just pointing out like 2 or 3 of them today. And looking back on that should give us incredible confidence. Think about it this way. My children are still very young, and sometimes they get scared of the dark, right? There's a hallway in our house upstairs where all the bedrooms are, and they will not, some of my kids will not go up there if the light is off. Scares them. Nope, I will not do it. It's too scary. I'm not doing it. And as a parent, it can kind of be exasperating. You know, it's like, buddy, you've been up there 10,000 times. You know that's your bedroom up there. It's not scary. You can go up there. You can make it, man. Nope, too scary. Not doing it. You have to come with me. And I'm always cozy on the couch. Got my blanket. I don't want to get up, but you have to, right? Because the light at our stairs, you get to the top and it's like halfway down the hallway is the switch, right? You have to go into the dark to turn the switch on. Well, there's a metaphor for life. But anyways, We think our children are silly for being scared, right? Don't we? We think it. The sun sinks behind the horizon and it's like, but we're smart. We're adults, right? We know better. We know that sun's coming up. We know darkness comes, but we also know the sun is coming back up tomorrow. The sun has risen every day in my entire life. I looked it up. The sun has risen 13,550 times in my life. From November 15th, 1988, all the way to December 21st, 2025. 13,500. And I look back on all those sunrises. I'm feeling real confident that the sun is going to rise tomorrow. Because it's happened 13,000 times for me. It has happened over and over. And in the same way, it's a sign of maturity to look back on the sunrises of our past and have confidence in what's coming in the future. And in the same way, it's a sign of spiritual maturity to look back on all the times that God has shown up, all the times that God has brought transformation into the world, has kept his promises and protected his people and completed the puzzle. It is a sign of maturity to look back, see God's faithfulness, and then feel confident that he can get you through this present darkness. And I guess the last step of this teaching is to connect to that confidence that we have when we look back and we see prophecy fulfilled, to connect that to joy. Christians teach that Jesus came. He was born of a Virgin Mary in Bethlehem, fulfilled a whole bunch of prophecies in his life. He died on the cross, rose 3 days later. That was pretty epic. That's why we worship him. And in the end, he ascended into heaven. But before he left, he said, someday I'm coming back. I'm going to come back and I'm going to get rid of all evil. And I'm going to wipe away every tear and I'm going to set up my kingdom on this earth. The very last book of the Bible is actually a book of prophecy. It's the only prophecy left. And a lot of people get real hung up on the parlor trick. They get hung up on the prediction stuff. They think that's what the last book is all about. But have we been paying attention? Do we remember? What is prophecy actually about? Somebody said it. Hope. Hope. Yes, it's about hope. The book of Revelation is not there to tell us how the world is going to end. If that's what it was there for, they wouldn't have been so weird about it and confusing. They could have given us clear instructions, but no, it's there to give us hope. They actually wrote a song about this. There's a song that is, people think it's a Christmas song, but it's not a Christmas song. It's actually about the end of the world. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? Joy to the World. Did you know that? Not a Christmas song. It's not a Christmas song. Look it up. Look up the lyrics. There's nothing about shepherds, wise men, angels. There's no manger. There's no Santa. There's not even snow. It's a little fun fact to make people roll their eyes at you at the Christmas party, right? Joy to the World was actually written by Isaac Watts in 1719 based on Psalm 98, and it's about the second coming of Jesus, about when Jesus will come back and wipe away every tear and wipe away all the darkness and set up his kingdom forever. And that gives us hope, and that hope gives us joy. Jesus is not just fulfilling prophecies thousands of years ago with his birth. He's fulfilling them right now, here today. He's still giving us hope, and that hope still leads to joy. Do you still have your puzzle piece? Hold them up if you got them. Anybody still got them? All right. Anybody want to take a guess as to what the picture on the puzzle is? You all have pieces from the same puzzle. Mine's like, I got a little blue and a little yellow, but it's like fuzzy. I don't really know. What do we got? Maybe flowers, garden. Yeah, okay. See, it actually helps if you look at someone else's puzzle piece, which is the same thing if this is a metaphor for your life. It actually helps if you look at some of the lives around you, right? If your life is this puzzle piece, it might be a beautiful piece all by itself. You might look at that and say, that's a perfect picture. I'm just going to focus on this one picture. But we have to remember that this is just one piece, one part of the masterpiece that God is creating. My challenge for you this week is to put your future, your life, your puzzle piece in God's hands. I want you to take these with you. Hold on to it. Keep it in your pocket. Stick it in your purse, whatever. Put it in your wallet. Hang on to this and just remind yourself that your life, your story, is just one piece in a much bigger masterpiece that God is creating. Trust that the author of every prophecy knows how to write the end of the story. Stop trying to wrestle control of the universe away from God. That's a fool's errand. Don't cut your puzzle piece up trying to fit it somewhere it doesn't belong. Some of us, we want it to fit in a particular space in life. So we're like, I've got a nub here that I don't like, so I'll just get some scissors and I'll cut that off. I'll get my puzzle piece to fit. And you've given up on God's picture. You're trying to fit it somewhere it shouldn't be. But my challenge to you this week is trust the one who made the whole picture. Let's take a look at what the puzzle actually creates. Pretty close, right? It's beautiful. That's a nice picture, right? That's lovely. And I've got this little piece here, and I'm looking at this piece, and I'm looking at that picture, and I don't think I could have come up with that. I don't think I could have seen what God was doing if I just look at only my life. I don't know how my little puzzle piece was going to be used, but that's what it means to trust God with our life, right? It means that no matter what darkness that you are walking through right now, knowing that there is a bigger picture gives us hope to carry on. When we read the scriptures, when we read this book and what God promises and what it means for our life, it's like taking the puzzle piece and holding it up against the picture on the box. You know what I'm talking about? Like, that's how you do a puzzle, right? You got all these pieces and you keep checking the picture for reference. That's how you make puzzles. We hold up the picture for reference. We check the cover on the box so we know what we're working towards. In the same way, we hold up God's love to our life to figure out where we're headed, to feel comfort and reassurance to get us through the hard parts. Knowing that there is a bigger picture transforms how we approach our struggles. It can take an exasperated exhaustion that you're feeling and turn it into enduring patience. It can take hopeless cynicism where you feel like it's just never going to change and it's always going to be like this, and it can turn it into confident expectation. It's the difference between feeling like you are abandoned, that you're hanging out there all by yourself and you're just all alone and no one's ever coming. It's the difference between that and then getting that phone call that says help is on the way. And the way to do that is to stop looking at your puzzle piece and start looking at the whole picture. God is breaking through the darkness. The baby is coming. The author is about ready to write the next chapter. And the master puzzle maker is about to bring all the pieces together in your life. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for making the beautiful masterpiece, the incredible picture. We don't see it. And sometimes we get so hung up on these little puzzle pieces of our lives and the shadows that we see, and we don't understand how it all fits together. But God, I just ask that today you would flood our life with reassurance, that we would remember your love, that we would remember that you are in control, that you have your hand on everything, and that all these pieces come together, that you will take every darkness, every broken thing in our life, and you will make it work together for the good of those who love you. We trust you with our darkness, with our brokenness. We trust in the picture that you are creating, in the love that you have promised us. We know that you are the author of it all, and that you love us, that you are watching over us. And so whatever we are going through, Lord, today, we surrender it to you. We put it in your hands and we say, okay, God, you be in control. I trust you. We love you, Jesus. In your name, amen.
We hope this message encouraged you in seeing who God is and who you are in him. If you want to take a next step, visit centergr.com or find us on social media. We look forward to connecting with you there, and we'll see you back here next week.